documentary is called The Man with 1,000 Children, but you maintain that it's how many?
550.
Do you think that's okay? Do you think that's all right, having 550 children?
Yeah, because it's common practice.
Oh, you see this guy? See this guy? Number one bullshit guy.
The Man with 1,000 Kids. I'm sure you've seen it. Let's jump right in. So, if you've seen The Man with 1,000 Kids on Netflix, you will see that the documentary follows the story of the women that have had children through this person's donation. Well, we've later heard from him himself on Loose Women and This Morning, and we're going to react to some of the things that he says. So, let's jump right in.
What if I were to tell you that there is a man alive today who may have fathered over 1,000 children? What kind of man would do that?
What kind of...
I always wanted to be a mom. We wanted to have a family together.
A sperm donor is making up 50% of your child.
I got to know him on the internet.
He had curly hair.
We really hope that our kids have his hair.
We were totally sold. I'm ready to have beautiful babies.
9 months later, I had a baby boy.
But that wonderment was totally ripped from us. She said, your donor is quite famous. This guy is a serial donor.
Okay, right, there's a problem. The word serial donor just terrifies me. I'm a dad with donor-conceived children myself. We had our children in the UK and our donors were from the UK. This basically means that we work within a real tight regulated framework for sperm and egg donation in the UK. And that means that the regulator, the HFEA, closely track how many children are born or how many families are created. And there's a limit, okay? So that's either 10 families or 30 children. The fact that these people have been talking to this donor on the internet, that's the first red flag for me.
How many? How many children do you have now?
It was a shock.
He lied.
There weren't 4 families or 5 families. There were already hundreds.
Oh my God, 100. And this is the issue, I think, that a lot of people, maybe that don't have donor-conceived children, understand. And at the heart of all of this is a child. At the core of this is the welfare of a child that could be, as we see from the documentary, living in small towns, neighbourhoods, cities, where they may come in contact with their genetic sibling, and that has consequences, as we know.
It's become an addiction for him. He actually can't stop himself.
It's a worldwide problem.
He has no intentions of stopping.
Why are you putting so many children on this earth?
There we go, there's the first one.
The problem's getting bigger and bigger. You cannot stop him.
When you're breeding livestock and cattle, that is more regulated than sperm donation.
Not in the UK. International, yes, it's a problem.
Like this never happened before. This is a very dangerous situation.
We didn't think that this could get any more twisted, but it did.
My God, what is going on?
I'm gonna take you down with a bunch of other moms who will stand behind me. We were determined to stop him. Don't mess with a mom.
Wowzers, right, we're going to have a look at some of the other reactions now, hearing his side of the story. It's important to say that sperm donation or egg donation in the UK, as we know from watching the documentary, there were children in the UK, and that's because you can still buy sperm internationally, even though you live in the UK. You could travel for your fertility treatment abroad and use the particular agency that he used or was with, but there are clinics in the UK that use international agencies like Zytex or Cryos. That's where there can be a problem, because it's the traceability of that donor. Yes, they may have donated to that particular bank, but however, how many other banks or clinics or people has that person donated to? That's part of the issue. Right, I am watching the nation's favourite. We're hearing the other side, or his side of the story. Let's see what he has to say for himself.
Huge demand in donors that I could help them, help families.
Yeah, so once you realise and the clinic have said to you, look, you're fertile, your sperm would be very welcome and viable, then that's quite an exciting moment as well. So when you've started making these donations initially at the clinic, What was that experience like?
Give you me a good old rub.
And when did, and also Jonathan, when did you find out that not only were you making these deposits, but also the deposits had then led to creating children down the way?
Okay, yeah, they will inform you if you want. So after like 6 months, I could find out, and they said.
So yes, you can call at the end of every year or after 6 months and to see if there have been any live births. That's the responsible thing to do as a donor. I'm a sperm donor. I donated in 2018. I call every year to see the progress of my donations, and I'll tell you how many children have been born at the end of this clip.
Already 5 children conceived with your sperm. So
after 6 months.
Yeah, I think, or maybe 7 months. Yeah. Because it goes like 6 months in like a container, and then they do it.
He's talking about the quarantine process. So your sperm has to be quarantined.
What?
To make sure it's safe to be used. That's one of the benefits of using a clinic. When you're doing home insemination, please be really careful, because you just never know what the sperm has in terms of any infections, or what, if any, genetic conditions is that person carrying, and are you a carrier of the same condition, because that's called co-carriage, and co-carriage means that will impact the child born through the donation. So genetic testing is really important, and home insemination could be so risky, but please be careful.
Test and
so clearly you've got sort of very, as Kat was saying, very viable sperm, because that's in that short space of time. Suddenly realising that you had allowed these families to have 5 children in that short space of time, what's that like for you emotionally? How did you feel about that?
Well, the thing that struck me was that I found out that I became a biological father.
Yeah.
Okay. The term biological father, yes, his sperm has created another human being that shares DNA with him. When you're a donor, you don't, my opinion and the donor conception opinion is quite aligned, and that means that I do not consider myself a biological father to the children that have been born from my sperm. I am a donor, and children have been born with the help of my sperm, and I am their donor. I do not consider myself to be their biological father, and I wouldn't think that these people that have used my sperm think of me as this child's biological father. I am their donor. Simple.
That I directed my own life in that regard. I never, when I was a little boy, I would never think that would be the first time I would be a biological father. I would always imagine it with a wife, with children. Yeah. So that was something that I had to.
I disagree. I think he knows full well what he was getting himself into, because, as we know, it just gets worse and worse and worse. So I think he knows this whole desire to procreate en masse. This bloke knows full well what he's doing.
Process.
Right.
Yeah.
So it initially started with one clinic. Then how many other clinics did you join?
In total there were like 6 sperm banks.
Right.
There are 5.
6 sperm banks. There aren't tons of sperm banks around, and as we know, sperm banks will sell vials of sperm or straws of sperm to the fertility industry. They'll sell that to all types of clinics, and if they've got relevant agreements in place with clinics abroad or somewhere like the UK, then they will sell that sperm. So the fact that he's gone to 6 banks is terrifying, because the critical mass of where that can then be distributed is just insane, and he knows full well what that is going to do.
Hospitals where I only went once, so they say 11 clinics, but that's not correct. It's like 6 sperm banks, and then
6 sperm banks that could be selling to 10 clinics each,
spread out over the country of the Netherlands.
And then you decided that you were also going to do it privately as well, and offer a service privately where you would get in contact with women that wanted babies directly.
Yeah.
Why did you choose to do that?
Yeah, why?
Well, at first the clinic, it was great. It was security for me. It was safe.
Yeah.
It was all in controlled manner. You would just deliver the sperm, and they would hand it out to what it needs.
Cat Dealey's got her arms folded.
But I felt like I I felt at ease at that moment. I was like, okay, maybe I can also see myself like a private donor. I wasn't
because he's not donated enough.
Missing sort of like the human contact, like meeting people and maybe getting some updates about the child. And I think at the time I was ready for it. I said, okay, I could also be a known donor plus. So.
Known donation, I'm a fan of known donation. I have a child born through known donation. This means that the donor is known to the recipient and the donor can get updates. The donor isn't involved in any way, shape or form in the upbringing of that child. But known donation, there are studies that show that the welfare of the child, when considering the welfare of the child, known donation actually has many, many benefits because the child will know from a very, very early age their origin, their DNA, who was their donor. With other donation routes, when it's anonymous or non-anonymous, like in the UK, or donor release, the child won't find out until they're 18. Known donation is so good and the benefits are phenomenal for the child.
Means that you are with the recipients in contact from the moment you meet them.
So the child will know who their father is and you can be in touch and get up.
Donor. The child will know who their donor is.
Updates. Yeah. Interestingly, one of the allegations in the documentary is that you met a lot of these women as a private donor and they asked you how many times you had donated or how many children, and you only ever said 3 or 4. And in fact, even by then you had fathered a lot more children. Why did you lie to those women when you were meeting them privately about how often you'd done this?
Yeah, well, first I was fully open. I shared everything with any recipient that I would meet.
So that was a f***ing lie.
Like the amount of children that I've helped, my home address, everything.
So you disagree with what that, because there's some of the women said, we sat down with him and he said he'd only ever donated 3 times and they were led to believe that you hadn't fathered that many children.
Well, no, so first I was fully open, but later...
Gotcha, bitch!
When I got in some trouble with recipients that I would meet, because you meet a lot of different people and not all have like...
Answer the question.
Well, some people are just, you know, you don't want to help them.
Okay.
They get upset.
Yeah.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And they will do things that are very unpleasant. So I found out by experience that to be fully open is very dangerous to me because I'm a private donor, so I have no lawyers supporting me, I have no money in the bank that can help me if there's some trouble.
Okay. So massively gaslighting the question now. Poor him. He chose to be a known donor. And if you're going down a known donation route, take some responsibility for what you're doing. Get legal advice. Make sure that the relevant consent, if necessary, or agreements are in place where you are ensuring that the recipient has safeguarded legal parentage for them or their partner, and that the donor is simply a donor and has no parental responsibility or legal rights over the child. Him claiming that he was so vulnerable, poor him. Grow a pair.
Of course, in an ideal world, I will be fully open always, but I, for my own safety, I had to like limit it.
His poor safety. Oh my God, this poor man.
Do you understand then why, if you're saying that you were doing it to protect yourself, you were lying to these women, do you understand why they now feel victimised by that lie, but they feel like they were completely misled? As special as it is having a baby and a family that they always wanted, in the circumstances in which you have told them about yourself weren't true. Do you understand why they say they're victimised by you?
No.
Stop it. Get some help.
First of all, they wouldn't get this exclusivity or a number from a clinic. So if they would go to any clinic, they will not share how often the donor is being used. So,
but there are laws though in place with the clinics.
Yes, Kat.
Correct?
In theory.
Because because here in the UK it's kind of 10 families, you can have as many children, and each individual country has different laws.
In the UK it's like 10 families, but then the same donor, if people use, for example, a international clinic, will ship worldwide. So
and this is the worrying part. Yes, it's true. And this is the area that needs to change with donation and international donors. I think this is where the industry needs to come together to, like in surrogacy, the Law Commission want a surrogacy register when new laws are rewritten. And the same really applies to a donor register, really. You know, donor conceived children or people and the recipients of and donors need to be tracked and stored safely. The issue is when a donor travels abroad to donate. There is then no real international system or pathway that tracks their donation. We have a big issue with this. I personally have an issue with this. My sperm is only allowed to be donated in the UK, and I know that my details and the safeguarding of these children that are born through my donation is at the absolute core of the legislation here in the UK. There is reform coming with the HFE Act, and more on that on another video in the future. But right here, right now, he knows of this loophole, and he knows that what he's doing is wrong. He knows all of the ins, the outs, the why-fors. We know he travelled internationally to donate to various banks around the world, and that is just reckless.
No exception. That's why I'm so surprised about the movie. They really try to make appear that I have 550 children is the correct number, so they make it more exaggerated, and then they pretend that I am very unique. But this is not unique. All the people that use a donor from an international clinic have hundreds of siblings. That is a fact.
Is it?
The documentary is called The Man with 1,000 Children. You maintain that it's how many?
550.
Do you think that's okay? Do you think that's all right?
It's still not two.
Children?
Yeah, because it's common practice. It's not anything for a donor. Of course.
Okay, I'm kind of done listening to him, if I'm honest, because it really winds me up. Because the impact of his recklessness and his entire ego is all about him and not considering the fact that there will be children in some parts of the world where he donated in the earlier part that will be in a classroom with their half-sibling. And that is just not on. These children may not know that they are related. They might grow up, they might eventually become attracted to one another. There's one town that I've seen where that there are multiple donor-conceived children from this individual, and that ain't cool. Okay, so let's wrap that up. It's a lot, isn't it? What can we do about this particular topic? Well, I think first of all, as a donor, you have to take responsibility for the act that you're doing. So, you know, take responsibility for your own genetic material, because children have been born as a result of the great act that you're actually doing. Now, we know that there isn't an international register. We know that this guy is now banned from donating his sperm, but that could still happen as a known donor, potentially. So that still can happen, but certainly from a international sperm or egg donor register, there isn't one. So you need to make sure that when you are seeking out eggs or sperm, or even if you want to have donor embryos, that you're working with a reputable clinic, you're working with a reputable egg or sperm bank, and that you know how many children have been produced or born via that clinic or via that provider from the donor that you're choosing. That is really, really important. It's some of the basic ethics, okay? Ideally as well, if you do know, it's always good to have some extended genetic screening done. I'm a big fan of extended genetic screening to understand, is that donor carrying any conditions that you may also be carrying? We all carry a defective gene, and let's just educate ourselves on the risks with that to these children that we're trying to create. Okay, so what I need you to do is like, subscribe, click that notification bell, and let's keep the comments kind and civil. This is a controversial topic. There are people that are going to be watching this or commenting on this that might be a donor-conceived person or child or adult. It's a really sensitive topic, so let's just be kind, keep them civil, and yeah, we'll see you soon.